Hey guys, Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, bringing you a comparison today of the entire Nike Magista lineup. This is something that I did with the Mercurial line for 2014, and now we're going to be talking about what the major differences are when it comes to price, performance, and really what you should be looking for if you're interested in something from the new Nike Magista lineup. So we have all four models right here from left to right. You have the Magista Obra with a retail price of $275, the Magista Opus with a retail price of $200, the Magista Orden with a retail price of $130, and finally the Magista Onda with a retail price of $75. Again, we're going to talk about what all the major differences are in today's video. Please keep in mind that if you want as many details as possible throughout the video as I'm talking about each individual model, I'll leave annotations on screen to other videos on my channel that perhaps go into more details on that specific model. So again, look out for those annotations on screen. And with that being said, let's get right into the comparison. The one performance element that does not have much variation across the entire Magista lineup is of course the stud pattern. Whether you buy the top end Obra or the lowest end Onda model, you're going to get the exact same firm ground layout. The performance is, like I said, going to be very similar because they are pretty much identical. You will find some variation in the sole plate, where some have an external one-piece heel counter, and the actual materials of the sole plate are going to vary a little bit when you go from the top end Obra to the Opus to the Orden to the Onda, but for the most part there isn't a huge noticeable difference when it comes to overall performance as far as those sole plates go. So again, traction should not be your major point of consideration if you're trying to decide between one of the four models in the Magista lineup, so please keep that in mind. When it comes to feel and performance, the Magista line to me separates into three different categories. One that includes only the Obra, the second category which includes the Opus and the Orden, and the final category that includes the Onda. So in the video we're going to talk about all three categories completely separate so we can get a really good idea on what the major differences are from one model to the next. As I'm sure most are aware by now, the CTR 360 line, where obviously the most notable shoe was the Maestri 3, which is what I have right here in red and black, was replaced by the Magista line, where the new flagship model, or the top-end model, is of course the Magista Obra. Because the Magista line replaced the CTR 360 line, automatically people want to draw comparisons between the Maestri 3 and the Obra. And honestly, these two shoes do not compare at all when it comes to fit, feel, comfort. Nothing about these shoes is the same, so please keep that in mind and don't compare these two shoes, but more on the Maestri 3 a little bit later in the video. So it's nothing like the Maestri. What are we actually getting with the Magista Obra? It's a very, very unique shoe, and it certainly isn't for everybody. It's a shoe that I would recommend based on whether or not you like the concept of the one-piece Flyknit upper, the mid-cut design, the styling of the shoe, because it's just one of those shoes that, because it's so different, I think a lot of people would like it should they give it a try, but that's just it. Not everybody is going to like this kind of very off-the-wall concept that Nike has implemented on the Magista Obra. One other thing to mention about this particular model is that it has also absolutely nothing in common with the rest of the Magista line. So whether you buy the Opus, the Orden, or the Onda, you're not going to get any of that sensation, you're not going to get any of the same experience that you would get from the Magista Obra. The one-piece Flyknit upper really does offer a sock-like level of comfort and a sock-like fit. The mid-cut design is simply there, not necessarily to add extra support to your ankle, because it doesn't do that in any way at all. It's completely free-flowing, as you guys can see, but what it does do is it creates that seamless sensation where the shoe feels like an extension of your body as opposed to a pair of shoes on your feet. The upper is actually pretty dense and a lot more kind of sturdy than you might expect it to be if you've never held a pair of these in your hands. It's a very tight kind of knit pattern on the upper itself. It's got some really heavy texturing to it. It's covered with a layer of Nike skin similar to what you're going to find on the Hypervenom Phantom, just to provide that little bit of extra grip on the ball. And of course it features all conditions control technology as well. And on the inside, something that I can't show you, there is actually a padded liner. So while you might expect the Flyknit shoe to be extremely thin, they are on the thinner side, but there's also a light amount of padding to it as well. So the overall touch that you get is not barefoot, but definitely more along the lines of a barefoot style of shoe, if that makes any sense. Again, it's just one of those shoes that isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea, but that's okay. If you like the concept, if you like the look of the shoe, and you think you're going to have a good experience with it, more likely than not, you will have a really, really positive experience with the Magista Obra. It's a great performer and a really fun shoe to wear. Again, if you guys want more info on this specific model, all the details you can possibly get when it comes to the overall performance, I'll leave several annotations on screen, so be sure to go ahead and check that out. The second category in the Magista lineup consists of the Opus as well as the Orden. Now, a lot of people look at the Opus as well as this model as a takedown shoe, and I definitely would consider the Orden to be a takedown, but with the Opus, it's not really a takedown, it's an alternate high-end performance model in the Magista lineup, similar to the Vapor Superfly situation. Think of the Magista Opus as the spiritual unofficial successor to the Maestri 3, which again I have right here. If you're a fan of the Maestri 3 and you want the next logical progression from Nike or just in general, the Magista Opus is definitely the shoe to consider. It features a Kangolite upper, a very similar shape. You can see the lacing system has not really changed all that much. The fit is also very similar. It does have a different stud pattern, but the overall performance is going to be similar. And again, this is kind of the next generation Maestri 4, if you will. So if you were trying to figure out what your next shoe should be after the Maestri 3, if you were a fan of how this shoe felt, the Magista Opus, like I said, is the next logical shoe to take a look at. Now, the reason why I compare both of these two shoes is because they both feature Kangolite uppers. Now, with the Opus, you're getting something fairly unique in that it's a combination of Kangolite in the form of a very thin kind of webbed layer on the outside, fused directly to a performance mesh base layer, which you can see in color on this particular colorway. It's red as well as kind of like a lime green color, and that acts as kind of your lining material on the inside of the shoe. So it makes for less bulk in comparison to previous Kangolite models. It's a similar concept to what we see on the Hypervenom Phantom as well as on the Nike Tiempo Legend 5. In comparison to something like the Maestri 3, it's a little bit less bulky. There's no rubber elements on the outside. In place of the rubber elements, they've actually featured a form of like a gritty texturing on the outside. It's difficult to see on camera, but when you have the shoe in your hands in person, it's definitely very apparent. And then of course you have your ACC all conditions control on there as well. So the overall performance in wet playing conditions I found with this particular shoe to be pretty good overall. Now of course, unlike the Obra, it has a lower cut design, and then again you get pretty much the exact same stud pattern with a slightly more flexible sole plate. With the Orden, you are getting the Kangolite upper. You can see the branding right there. You're not getting any of that performance mesh detailing, and because of that, they wanted to include the pattern on there. You still get some texturing, but in my opinion, it does look a little bit cheap. And for $130, it's a relatively expensive takedown model. I'm not generally one to recommend a takedown model simply because the quality generally is not there for the price that they're asking. And for $130, I don't think this is an unreasonable shoe. It's all Kangolite, so it offers a really good fit and feel, a great touch on the ball, definitely leather-like while still maintaining the benefits of a synthetic. But at $130, it's tough for me to recommend. For $110, you can pick up a pair of Nike Premiers, which in my opinion is a more comfortable shoe, and the quality is really one that can't be beaten, not only in comparison to the Orden, but in comparison to a lot of shoes currently out there on the market. So again, if you're dying to have a pair of shoes from the Magista lineup, you really like that look, then the Orden, if it's in that $130 price budget, is something that you want to consider. It is worth the money to a certain extent. The quality is definitely there, where again, the Opus, don't view it as a takedown model. It's simply an alternative in the Magista lineup. If you're not a fan of what you get with the Obra and you want the next logical step on what normally would have been the CTR 360 line, the Magista Opus is definitely the shoe to consider. The third and final category in the Magista lineup is, of course, the Magista Onda, which, in my opinion, is an okay takedown model. It has a retail price of $75. You don't get any Kangolite, you don't get any fly in it, it doesn't have a mid-cut design. All you pretty much get in comparison to the higher-end models is the lacing cut, and then of course the stud pattern. The upper itself is made from a relatively cheap but still pretty soft synthetic leather material. It's got a fairly thin kind of thickness to it, as you guys can see, so the overall feel for the ball honestly isn't too bad. But again, at $75, if you're buying them at full retail, it's not a shoe that I can really recommend. If you're catching them on sale for, let's say, $50 or less, then perhaps it may be worth it if you're really on a budget or you're just looking for a pair of shoes for practice that you can beat up on. But if you're going to spend full retail, $75, it really may be worth it to take a look at what all your options are, what's currently on sale, because you may be able to get an older model that is a little bit higher end for about the same price. So again, unless you're really dying to have a pair of shoes that have the Magista look, the Onda is okay, but certainly not a shoe that I would recommend for the full $75 retail price. As far as weight is concerned, the entire Magista lineup is lighter than you might expect it to be. So I'm going to weigh every single model. Keep in mind these are all a size 9.5 US, so this is a very fair comparison. We'll start off with the Magista Obra, throw it on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.1 ounces, which, like I said, is pretty light. You really can't ask for much more from a shoe of this style. Take that off the scale. We'll throw on the Magista Opus, and you can see that they weigh in at slightly less, 6.9 ounces, 0.2 ounce difference from the Obra. Again, not a big deal, not necessarily an amount of weight that you're going to notice on your feet, but just keep in mind that both the high-end models in the Magista lineup are, like I said, lighter than you might expect. Take that off the scale. We'll throw on the Magista Orden, and you can see that these guys weigh in at 7.7 ounces, so they do weigh almost a full ounce more than the Obra as well as the Opus. Again, nothing too significant. It still is under 8 ounces, which is pretty good for a takedown model. And again, it's certainly not going to weigh you down out there on the field. We'll take that off the scale and we'll throw on the Magista Onda. This is, of course, the final shoe with a $75 retail price. And you can see that they weigh in at 7.4 ounces. So again, they're all under 8 ounces, all within that 7 ounce range or so, with the Opus just being slightly below it. But again, they're all going to offer a nice lightweight feel, and I really can't complain about any of the models when it comes to weight. Alright, here's a look at the Magista Obra as well as the Magista Opus on feet. Just so we can do a quick little discussion on how these things fit and of course what the sizing is like. Now with the Magista Obra, it's one of those shoes that really doesn't compare to anything other than maybe the Superfly 4 from Nike, simply because that's the only other Flyknit mid-cut model currently out there on the market. And again, I wouldn't compare the Obra to any of the other Magista models. It just simply is not the same. The Obra offers a very unique on-foot feel. The Flyknit material really does wrap your foot, offers a sock-like level of fit with a surprising amount of support from the Brio cables and just the general structure of the upper overall. The mid-cut design does feel a little bit odd at first, but overall I'm really happy with how they fit. Once you get used to how they feel, they are extremely comfortable in my opinion. I have heard of some people having issues with blisters. That I think is a lot down to the sizing and of course people just not breaking them in slow enough. It's one of those things where because they feel so unique and because it's such an interesting type of fit that really doesn't compare to any other soccer shoe, it's really important that you wear them in slowly until you feel more and more comfortable. That way you're going to avoid blisters altogether. I never got any blisters from either of the two mid-cut Flyknit models from Nike, but that's simply because I took my time. If you take your time through the break-in process, you shouldn't have any issues either. The one-piece upper really wraps your foot nicely, and it has that seamless sensation that you really don't get from any other models out there other than the Flyknit variations on offer from Nike. As far as width is concerned, there's a decent amount of width. As long as you don't have excessively wide feet, these should fit you quite comfortably. Just keep in mind that you won't get much stretch out of the upper. The way they fit from right out of the box is the way they're going to fit for their entire lifespan. With the Magista Opus, it feels more like a standard soccer shoe. It's extremely flexible in comparison to the Maestri 3, and that's simply because you have this kind of webbing design in the upper, where that performance mesh really has no rigidity to it, so it moves very naturally with your foot, and because of that, the upper is so soft, so flexible, it's just very, very comfortable to wear. Pretty much from right out of the box. You will get some minor stretch out of the upper, but again, it does have a tighter overall fit. So as long as you don't have excessively wide feet, these should fit you quite comfortably. But again, if you have really wide feet, it's probably best to stick to something with a natural leather upper. As far as sizing goes, the Obra is a little bit tricky. I've worn both the size 9, which is my normal size, as well as a 9.5 US in the Obra. I feel comfortable in both. I would say that I feel a little bit more comfortable in the 9.5. So again, if you wear your shoes generally on the bigger side, it's probably best to stick true to size with the Magista Obra. But if you wear your shoes on the tighter side like I do, then going a half size up may not be a mistake for you. Again, I normally wear a 9. I actually started out wearing a 9 in the Obra, but actually found it to be a little bit more comfortable in the 9.5 US. So it's kind of up to you as to whether or not you want that tighter fit by going true to size, or having a little bit of extra length by going half a size up. I went half a size up, and there really isn't any extra length. They just fit pretty much perfect. With the Opus, there's no question that they run half a size small. Normally I'd wear a 9, I'm wearing a 9.5, and the fit and the length is absolutely perfect. So if you're planning on buying a pair of Magista Opuses, I would strongly recommend going half a size up, or going for the same size that you wore in the CTR 360 Maestri 3. Alright, here's a look at the Magista Orden as well as the Magista Onda on feet. And if I'm completely honest with you guys, I don't really notice much of a difference when it comes to comfort and the overall fit between both of these two models, even though there is a drastic difference in quality as well as price. It's not until you start making touches on the ball that you're actually going to notice any significant difference when it comes to the overall performance and of course the ball feel, where the Orden is significantly better in that regard. As far as the width is concerned, you're going to get some stretch out of both of these two shoes, not a lot because it is a synthetic at the end of the day. And again, the fit and sizing is very similar to that of the Opus in that it's a tighter fitting shoe overall, pending that you get the right size. But as long as you don't have excessively wide feet, these should fit you quite comfortably. As far as sizing is concerned, again, just like the Magista Opus, there's no question that these run about half a size small like the CTR 360 line did. So if you've worn a CTR 360 model in the past, go with the same size. I normally wear a size 9 US, and in both the Orden as well as the Onda, I went up to a 9.5 for the best possible fit. So again, if you're planning on ordering either of these two models, going half a size up is strongly recommended. Alright guys, that's it for my comparison of the entire Nike Magista lineup. I truly do believe that every single model within the line has something to offer for a certain price. Now to sum things up for you guys, the Magista Obra, it's the top end model, $275 retail price, so it certainly isn't cheap. But it's a shoe that has a lot to offer when it comes to overall performance. It's a shoe that I would recommend to somebody who is looking for something completely different than anything that's ever been done before, and somebody who is really sold on the Flyknit mid-cut concept. If you like the idea of this shoe, you're more likely to have a very, very positive experience with it. And like I said, it really does have all the performance aspects that you could possibly want from a modern day soccer cleat. Again, if you want as much information as possible on the overall performance, I'll leave several annotations on screen to videos that I have featured on my channel. And you can also check out the full written review linked down below in the description, where you'll find all kinds of extra details that you won't find in any of my videos. So be sure to go ahead and check that out. Again, the link is down below in the description. Below that, we have the Magista Opus, which a lot of people are viewing as a takedown model, but it's not. It is a high-end shoe, and it has a lot to offer. If you're a fan of the CTR 360 line, a fan of the Maestri 3, the Magista Opus is, like I mentioned, the unofficial Maestri 4, and definitely a shoe that you should take a really strong look at. It has lots to offer as far as performance is concerned. The combination of Kangalite and performance mesh makes for that classic Kangalite feel that a lot of people have come to love, but in a less bulky, more flexible form factor, making this in a lot of ways a nice improvement over what we got from the Maestri 3, and a great shoe overall, a great performer overall. Again, if you guys want more information on this particular model, I'll leave several annotations on screen to my playtests and other review videos concerning the Magista Opus, and you can also check out my full written review on my website, linked down below in the description as well. As far as the other takedowns are concerned, you do have the Magista Orden with a $130 retail price. It's not the best shoe out there. The quality is okay, especially considering the price that they're asking, even though it is on the higher end of things as far as takedown models go. The Kangalite upper offers a high quality touch. The overall fit and feel is pretty good. It's a comfortable shoe, no complaints in that regard. But $430, again, options like the Nike Premier, as well as other kind of shoes out there on the market, stuff that's on sale, are available and perhaps a little bit better when it comes to overall quality. So again, if you can catch these on sale, it's definitely a good buy. But if you're going to be paying the full $130 retail price, be sure to explore all of your options as far as what's available out there on the market at the point where you're going to buy a shoe. The final shoe in the lineup is, of course, the Magista Onda with a $75 retail price, so it certainly isn't expensive in any way, but the quality is alright for a shoe in this particular price range, but certainly not one that I would recommend. Again, if you can catch it on sale for a discounted price, it may be worth a shot. But for the full $75 retail price, just like the Orden, I would really recommend exploring all of your options depending on what your budget may be. So that's pretty much it for the comparison, guys. If you found this video helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions at all, and also let me know what is your favorite model in the Magista lineup, and which of the models have you tried personally, and what are your thoughts on the models that you've tried. Other than that though, guys, again, all of the links down below in the description to the review pages on my website are, like I said, down in the description. On those review pages, you'll find full written reviews, detailed pictures, as well as buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you can get some discounted prices, kind of avoid paying the full retail, if you will. So be sure to go ahead and check those out if you're interested in any of the 4 models in the Magista lineup. If you aren't subscribed already, be sure to hit that subscribe button for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all of my social media information down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, thanks for watching.